My name is Megan Miller, and I'd been working in the finance department of a medical device company for 6 years. I'd clawed my way into this job. Right out of community college at 21, I spent 2 years interning at a small accounting firm while paying off student loans, then landed this position as a trainee. I was always the first one in and the last one out. While other people took lunch breaks, I reconciled accounts. While they packed up at 5, I sorted through invoices. I even volunteered for weekend overtime shifts nobody else wanted. All because I'd been promised that if I worked hard enough, I'd get promoted to supervisor. 6 years later, I was still a senior specialist. There was always someone above me who'd been parachuted in from outside, and HR always said just wait a little longer. I never complained about the lack of promotion, not because I didn't care, but because I couldn't afford to care. This paycheck kept our entire household afloat, and as long as the money hit my account on time, the title didn't matter as much as it should have. My husband Daniel worked as a part-time fitness instructor at a local gym, 3 days a week, teaching 2 spin classes. The other 4 days he spent at home playing video games. He said he was waiting for a better opportunity, but that opportunity had been waiting since the 3rd month of our relationship, and it had never shown its face. My in-laws had lost their retirement savings in the stock market years ago. My father-in-law had trusted a friend's tip and poured everything into a company that went bankrupt 3 months later. After that, the 2 of them lived on Social Security and whatever their sons could give them. When I say their sons, I really mean me. Every payday, like clockwork, my mother-in-law Martha's phone call came. She always knew exactly when my money arrived because Daniel told her. I sometimes wondered if she marked it on her calendar in red ink, Megan's payday. Megan, the utility bill is due this month. Megan, Jake's tutoring fee is short by $2,000. Megan, your father-in-law needs new dentures. Can you check what insurance covers? Megan, I saw a coat I like. Come with me to buy it. Megan, the condo maintenance fee went up again. Can you cover it? I never said no. Not once. Daniel always said, "You're the best, babe. You know how my mom is. Just don't let her get to you." Then he'd turn back to his game, thumbs hammering the keyboard, never even glancing up. It hadn't always been like this. In the beginning, I was naive enough to believe that if I worked hard enough and kept my head down, they'd eventually accept me as part of the family. Every morning at 6, I made breakfast for everyone. Martha liked her egg sunny side up with a runny yolk. My father-in-law needed his black coffee with exactly half a spoon of sugar, too much and he'd say it was sour, too little and he'd claim it was bitter. Daniel didn't eat solids for breakfast, just his protein shake in that special shaker cup he expected me to wash immediately after use, or else it'd grow fur in the sink. Jake wanted a bacon sandwich with no lettuce, the bread toasted until it was golden brown but not burnt. I kept a little notebook in the kitchen drawer with everyone's preferences written down, terrified of getting a single order wrong. For the first 3 months, Martha praised me. "Megan's really something," she'd say. Much better than I was at her age. But eventually the compliments faded, replaced by expectation. I remember the time I came down with a 102-degree fever and overslept by 10 minutes. Martha stood in the kitchen doorway with her arms crossed, her face tight. "What's taking so long this morning?" "Everyone's waiting." I stood at the stove frying eggs, my whole body trembling. Sweat dripped off my forehead and sizzled into the pan. Daniel walked through the kitchen on his way out, glanced at me, said, "Your face is really red," and kept walking out the door with his car keys. After he left, it occurred to me that maybe I should take my temperature. But the eggs were still sputtering in the pan, and 4 people's breakfasts weren't done yet. I gritted my teeth and finished the last slice of toast. When I set the plates on the table, my hand slipped and I spilled a little of my father-in-law's coffee onto the tray. He frowned. "Clumsy." Martha sighed and grabbed a rag to wipe it up herself. Never mind. Just sit down and eat." I managed 2 spoonfuls of porridge before going back to bed. Nobody asked if I was okay. Nobody brought me a glass of water. I lay there listening to the TV in the living room, Martha's voice on the phone laughing at something, and later Daniel's keyboard clicking when he came home mid-morning to start gaming. All those sounds blending together, noisy and full, but none of them had anything to do with me. I turned toward the wall and pulled the blanket up to my chin. That was the first time I realized I was a shadow in that house. They could see me, but they didn't see me. 3 years of waiting for a better opportunity, and Daniel's client list was still the same dozen faces he'd started with. All the household expenses fell on me: rent, utilities, car payments, insurance, groceries, everything. My paycheck covered it all. Martha's take on this? Daniel's lucky he married someone who can earn good money. She said it with pride, like she was bragging about how smart her son was to have found himself a walking ATM. My father-in-law's contribution was, "Times are different now. Women can be the breadwinners." He said this from the couch, feet propped up, remote in hand, a bowl of fruit I'd washed sitting on the coffee table beside him. But when I came home exhausted at the end of the day to find my father-in-law sprawled across the couch watching TV and the dining table covered in Jake's online shopping boxes, I'd eat my dinner standing up in the kitchen. Nobody thought twice about it. The counter was right there, after all. You could eat standing up just fine. Jake's tutoring fees were some of the hardest things to swallow. Martha told me Jake was taking classes at the community college and needed extra help. The first time, I handed over $2,000. The second time, another $2,000. The third time I walked in, Martha was opening a package in the living room, and Jake's door was flung open. He was practically bouncing out of it. "Mom, what's this about tutoring?" I asked from the doorway. "Oh, that." Martha didn't even look up from the cardboard box she was tearing open. "Jake's been stressed out with school. He needs to relax. A gaming console works better for that than tutoring, honestly." "Don't make that face, Megan. Young people need entertainment." I stood there, the money still in my hand. Jake glanced up and gave me that grin of his, young, cocky, carrying the absolute certainty that I wouldn't push back. "You're not gonna give Mom a hard time about it, right, sis?" I set the cash on the shoe rack and left. My footsteps were heavy, but nobody noticed. When I got to my desk at work that morning, I stared at the blank spreadsheet on my screen for almost half an hour. The cursor blinked in the top left corner. Kate walked by and knocked on my cubicle wall. "Hey, Megan? You okay? Where's that report?" I snapped out of it and told her I'd get it done right away. That afternoon I sent her the finished file. She replied, "Numbers look good. But your face looks terrible. Go home early." I didn't answer. I didn't want to go home. Money was one thing. The indignity was something else entirely. Every Thanksgiving, the Wilsons hosted a big family dinner. Martha started planning 2 weeks in advance, the menu, the seating chart, calls to each aunt to coordinate who was bringing which dish. She never asked if I could take time off work, never asked if I needed help, never asked if I was tired. In her mind, all of it was simply my job. The first 2 years, I prepared the entire meal by myself. Nobody helped. Martha sat in the living room chatting with relatives and showing off her new earrings and whatever award Jake had gotten that month. I stayed in the kitchen the whole day, chopping, roasting, basting the turkey, tossing salads. Hot oil spattered my arms and left blisters. I covered them with Band-Aids and kept going. When everything was ready and everyone sat down, I discovered something. There was no seat for me. A round table for 10, with 9 chairs. My father-in-law at the head, Martha beside him, Daniel next to her, Jake beside him, Allison beside Jake, plus a few aunts and uncles. Perfectly filled. I walked out of the kitchen carrying the last dish, the roasted turkey, and the whole table turned to look at me. Then they looked at the missing chair. The room went quiet for a beat. "Oh, for heaven's sake," Martha said, tapping her temple with a diamond-ringed finger. I was so busy arranging the relatives I forgot to count our own people. "Megan, you see how tight it is, do you mind eating in the kitchen? You carved the turkey anyway, so the counter's right there. It's actually more convenient." Daniel didn't look up from the turkey he was slicing. His mouth was full as he mumbled, yeah, babe, just eat in the kitchen." Jake shrugged at me around a mouthful of roast potatoes. Allison covered her mouth and let out a little laugh, not a mean one, exactly. More like she just found the whole situation amusing. The sister-in-law carrying the main course with nowhere to sit. It was kind of funny. That year I ate Thanksgiving dinner standing at the kitchen counter. The turkey was perfect, crispy skin, tender meat, but I couldn't swallow it. From the living room I could hear laughter, clinking glasses, Martha's voice rising above the chatter as she told some story about her youth. "Our Megan's always been shy, she doesn't like to sit at the table with the crowd, don't mind her." Nobody minded. Because nobody had noticed I wasn't there. The next year, the exact same thing happened. I'd been forgotten in the seating arrangement again, so conveniently that I couldn't tell if it was deliberate or genuinely careless. But I was ready this time. I bought a folding chair and left it by the door. Before dinner started, I carried it in and set it up in the corner of the room, against the wall. The look on Martha's face was instant and sour. Her mouth turned down at the corners. Her brow pinched. "Megan, what do you think you're doing? We can't have something like that in here. A folding chair at a beautiful round table? It looks ridiculous." "Mom," I said, settling into the chair and keeping my voice steady, "I get tired standing up." Nobody said another word through the whole meal. No laughter. No toasts. Even Jake, usually the loudest, kept his head down. I ate my dinner quietly, cleared my own plate, and disappeared into the kitchen before dessert was even served. I didn't taste a single slice of pie. The next day, I overheard Martha telling Daniel, "Your wife's getting hard to handle." All the relatives thought she was in a bad mood. It was just a chair. She had to turn it into a whole ordeal. That night Daniel said to me, "Can you just go along with things next time? It's one chair." You made everyone uncomfortable. I just want to sit down to eat, I said. He rolled over and gave me his back. Fine, fine. You're right. Whatever. Let's sleep. I stared at that back for a long time. There was a small birthmark on the back of his neck that I used to kiss in our first year of marriage. Back then I thought this was the man I'd spend my whole life with. The birthmark was still there, the same shape, but lying next to him now felt like being a fish thrown onto the shore, still flopping after all this time, but nobody was paying attention. The one that still makes my skin prickle even now happened last fall. A training opportunity came up at the company's headquarters, 3 days away, and everyone knew that the people who went usually came back with a promotion. Only 2 slots were available in the entire finance department. Kate pushed my name forward. I got the confirmation email, and my hands were shaking when I read it. I sent Daniel a screenshot. He replied, "Congrats," then went back to his game. Not one extra exclamation point. I don't know how Martha found out. Maybe Daniel mentioned it. Maybe she heard something in his voice. But that evening, she called me up to the main living room like it was a formal meeting. My father-in-law was there. Jake and Allison were there. 4 pairs of eyes on me. "Megan, you're not going," Martha said flat out. "Mom, this is a promotion opportunity," my voice started to shake. "You'll be gone 3 days. Who's going to drive me to my appointments? Who's going to make your father-in-law lunch? Jake has exams that week and Allison has to work. Who's going to pick up the baby from daycare?" She ticked each point off on her fingers. "This whole household can't run for 3 days without you. Think about it. Mom, my career." "Career? Career?" My father-in-law's voice came in sharp and hard. "What's a few extra dollars compared to leaving your family hanging for 3 days? And besides, you're a woman. Running the household well is what matters. Look at your mother-in-law, she never had a job in her life, and she kept this family together better than anyone." I turned to Daniel. He was on the couch, scrolling through his phone, thumb swiping furiously at something. "Daniel," I said, my voice cracked. "Can you say something?" He glanced up at his mother, then at me, then back down at his screen. "Maybe just don't go this time. 3 days is a long time, and we really do need you here. There'll be other opportunities later." Later felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I'd waited 6 years at this company. 6 years for one training slot that could finally move me forward. When was later going to come? Another 6 years? I didn't say any of that. I stood there on Martha's rug, beside my father-in-law's couch, underneath the painting Jake had picked, and I said, "Fine. I won't go." That night, Daniel stayed in the living room playing games with Jake. I could hear their voices exploding through the ceiling, left. Ultimate. He's one shot. Laughter crashing down on me in waves. I opened my phone and scrolled back to the confirmation email. "Congratulations. You've been selected for the training program." I'd added the smiley face myself. I stared at it for a moment, then hit delete. Then I emptied the trash. My phone screen glowed against my face in the dark. The pillow beside me was empty. Daniel still hadn't come to bed. I stared at the ceiling and let the tears come without making a sound. When Kate found out, she pulled me aside. I saw you withdrew from the training. Megan, was that your choice, or was it family pressure? I told her it was my choice. She looked at me with an expression I still remember. She didn't argue. Just gave my shoulder a squeeze. If you ever decide you want to make a different choice, you come talk to me. She'd seen through me instantly. It took me a long time to see through myself. There was one more thing I never told anyone. Not even my parents. In our second year of marriage, I got pregnant. I didn't plan it, but when I saw those 2 pink lines appear on the test strip, my hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold it. I sat on the toilet, staring at those lines, and then I cried. Tears of joy. I was finally going to have a child of my own. Something that was truly mine. That night I told Daniel. He was eating the pasta I'd made. He paused with his fork halfway to his mouth. A baby? Now? Do we have the money for that? Who's going to take care of it? Diapers, formula, daycare, have you thought about what any of this costs? I opened my mouth to say we'll figure it out, but he was already back to eating. The next morning, Martha showed up at our door in her emerald green cashmere cardigan. She sat on the sofa, knees together, hands folded in her lap. Daniel told me. You can't have this child. I felt like I'd been doused in ice water. Why? You live in my house. You're the only one bringing in a real paycheck. When the baby comes, who's going to take care of it? I'm too old. Your father-in-law can barely walk to the mailbox. Daniel hasn't got steady work, he's still a child himself. Who's going to get up in the middle of the night? What happens when your maternity leave ends and you have to go back? I could take extended leave. And who pays for that? Martha's voice climbed higher, that familiar "you're being unreasonable" pitch. Megan, be sensible. Now's not the time. Wait until Daniel has a real job. Wait until your finances are in better shape. When that day comes, I'll help you. I promise. I wanted to say, this is my body and this is my baby. But before I could, Daniel nodded from the couch. Mom's right. We're not stable yet. Let's just wait. Wait. Always wait. I went to the clinic alone. Daniel had a spin class, he said. Couldn't miss it. I took a cab. Sitting in the waiting room, I watched a young couple across from me holding hands, their faces lit up with excitement. The woman rubbed her belly and murmured he just kicked, and the man leaned in all nervous. Really? What does it feel like? I looked down at my own stomach and put my hand on it. The thing inside was so small, smaller than a grape, but it was the first thing in my life I'd ever thought of as mine. After the procedure, I sat on a bench outside the clinic for what felt like hours. The nurse had handed me an aftercare sheet. I'd crushed it in my fist. Daniel picked me up. On the drive home, he talked at length about a new workout he'd learned, how great it was for fat burning, how his clients were loving it. I watched the gray sky through the passenger window, the bare trees, the branches like fingers reaching up into nothing. When we got home, Martha had made chicken soup. She stood at the door while Daniel answered it. She didn't come inside. Take care of yourself, she said. Don't eat anything cold. Her voice was gentler than usual. Just barely. The soup sat on my nightstand. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't drink a single spoonful. When it cooled and a slick of fat congealed on top, Daniel took it away and poured it down the sink. I never told anyone. Months later, my mother asked over the phone if we were planning to have kids. I said not yet. Work's busy. She said, oh, and didn't push. She probably guessed. But I didn't offer the truth and she didn't ask. That was how my mother and I were. She always waited for me to speak first. In hindsight, I should have realized then that in this family, my body, my career, my dignity, my future, none of it belonged to me. It all belonged to the bigger picture. The bigger picture they talked about was always someone else's convenience, someone else's needs. Never mine. But I kept swallowing it. Because from childhood, my mother had taught me, be patient. You can get through it. Let people think you're accommodating. I carried those lessons into this family and swallowed until I was close to bursting. Until the year-end bonus phone call. The company had done well that year. At the annual meeting, the CFO stood on stage and announced a 23% increase in department revenue. After the applause, he read off the year-end bonuses individually. When he came to my name, he said, Megan Miller, top bonus in the department. After taxes, $86,000. Everyone in the conference room turned to look at me. My colleague beside me slapped my arm. Megan. That's huge. It took me a couple of seconds to start clapping. My mouth wanted to smile but my brain was still processing. $86,000. That was more than half my annual salary. The first thing I thought was, send $20,000 to my parents. Their roof had been leaking for years, and they'd been putting off repairs because they couldn't afford it. The rest I'd save for a down payment on a place of my own. Even something tiny, 500 square feet, farther from work, it didn't matter. As long as the deed had my name on it. That thought had maybe 3 seconds to breathe before my phone buzzed. I didn't need to check who it was. I let it ring 5 or 6 times and die. Then a voice message popped in. I tapped it. Martha's voice blasted out, Megan, I heard you got a bonus. Your mother-in-law needs to talk to you about something. I flipped my phone face down on the table and tried to focus on the rest of the CFO's speech. But Martha's voice was already buzzing in my skull like a mosquito I couldn't swat. I called her back on my way out of the office. I knew I couldn't avoid it. Megan, you took forever to answer. Anyway, Daniel tells me you got more than 80,000? I'll be direct. Allison has her eye on a limited edition handbag. 68,000. You buy it for her as a New Year's gift from her sister-in-law. Make the family look good. My knuckles went white on the steering wheel. Mom, that bonus. What about it? You can't compare yourself to Allison. She just had a baby, she's home all day with a toddler, her back hurts constantly. You sit in an office all day with air conditioning. This kind of money doesn't mean the same thing to you. Besides, you're in finance, you handle money every day. What's 68,000? That money is what the company gave me for my work. And what's the difference? Family is family. Her tone had sharpened to a blade. I ask you, who gave you a place to live? Who let you marry into this family without demanding a thing? I've never once criticized you in 3 years. Now we're asking for one small thing. Let me put Daniel on. A rustle, and then Daniel's voice, lazy and distant. Megan. You heard Mom. Just buy the bag. Daniel. That's $86,000. It's my entire bonus. I know. But it's not like you really need it. There was food in his mouth. I could hear him chewing. Allison hardly ever wants anything. She's stuck at home with the kid all day. A bag would make her happy. Let her have it. I do need it, I said. My voice was very flat. 2 seconds of silence, then my father-in-law's voice inserted itself from somewhere off the speaker. Megan. That's not the right attitude. You married into this family, you have to act like a proper sister-in-law. Refusing to help out this way, people will talk. You want the Wilson name to be associated with stinginess? I was standing in the company parking lot, December wind slicing through my coat. My phone was hot against my ear, but the rest of me was ice. I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. That night Daniel came home early. The moment I walked in, I saw Martha on my sofa in her green cashmere, a cup of my tea in front of her. Allison was beside her, baby in arms, her eyes red and her lashes clumped together like she'd been crying. Jake was out on the balcony smoking. His silhouette was foggy through the glass. Mom, Allison started the moment she saw me, her voice syrupy and nasal. I know I shouldn't ask. But this bag, I've wanted it for months. I haven't bought myself anything since the baby. I feel like I've disappeared. I just want one thing that makes me feel like a person again. My daughter-in-law has been through so much, Martha cut in, patting Allison's back. Megan, you have to take care of her. Think back to when you first married, didn't this family help you out? Now it's your turn. Don't hesitate. Daniel was on the couch, scrolling his phone, not looking up. My father-in-law's back was to us on the balcony, his shadow a crooked shape on the glass door. I stood in the entryway, unlacing my shoes very slowly. Bending down, I could feel the blood rushing to my head. My temples pounded. Fine, I said. Everyone looked up at once. Seriously? Allison's eyes lit up like someone had switched on a pair of bulbs. Seriously. I walked into the living room, pulling out my phone. I'll transfer it to Allison right now. Martha smiled. That's more like it, smile. Her new dental crown caught the light. Allison scrambled to her feet, phone open to her payment QR code, gushing, "You're amazing, I'll pay you back somehow, I owe you so much." Jake leaned in from the balcony doorway, his expression satisfied. Daniel finally glanced up from his screen and shot me a quick smile, the same easy smile he used when asking someone to grab him takeout. Light, effortless. I tapped through the transfer screen. My thumb hovered for 1 second. 86,000. All of it. Confirm. Fingerprint. Complete. I turned my phone around so everyone could see it. It's done. All 86,000. It's Allison's now. Martha gave an approving nod and lifted her teacup. That's the right way to handle it. Daniel patted the cushion next to him. Come sit, babe. I didn't. I walked into the bedroom and pulled the door shut behind me. Leaning against the door panel, I stood there a long while, listening to the voices bleed through the crack. Martha, Megan's always been sensible. Allison, I've been waiting for this bag for 3 months. Jake, sis really came through this time. I walked to the bed and sat down. The transfer record glowed on my screen. 86,000. A string of zeros that felt like a wound. Half an hour later, the family group chat was exploding. Martha posted a screenshot of the transfer. The amount wasn't blurred this time, and wrote, "We need to give Megan credit today." She gave her entire year-end bonus to Allison for a bag. That's what a good daughter-in-law looks like. This family sticks together and shares everything. Allison followed with a cascade of heart emojis and "Thanks sis, you're the best." Jake sent a thumbs up. My father-in-law added a like. Daniel typed, "That's my wife." Then the aunts piped up. "Megan's such a thoughtful girl." The Wilsons found the right one. A cousin sent clapping hands. A younger cousin wrote, "Sis got her bonus, she's buying, right?" I took screenshots of every single message. Timestamps. Profile pictures. Names. I saved them all. Then I opened a private message with Kate. "Kate, can we meet first thing tomorrow? There's something I need to report." She replied in 2 minutes, "I just saw your bonus number and was going to say congrats." My office, morning. "It's not congrats," I typed. "It's a financial violation. Related to my employee ID." 23 seconds of silence. Then a single character, "come." That "come" was the turning of a key in a lock I should have opened a long time ago. The next morning, I got to work half an hour early. December mornings were dark, and the lobby lights had just flicked on when I walked in. A janitor with a mop nodded at me as I passed. I went straight to the legal department. Not to HR first. Mark, our legal counsel, was eating breakfast at his desk, a bagel and coffee in a takeout bag. He looked up when I walked in, mid-chew. "Megan? You're early." I dropped a manila envelope on his desk. He wiped his hands and opened it. Inside was everything I'd prepared, the 7 purchase records Allison had generated using my employee ID, copies of the corresponding invoices, the business registration of the vendor in question, and screenshots of my conversation with her from last year, where I'd explicitly refused to participate. It had taken me a while to dig those messages out of the archives. Allison had written, "Sis, my friend runs a business. She can handle invoices for you. Your company's procurement process is such a pain, going through her would save you so much trouble." I'd replied, "I can't do that. It's against the rules. You're way too rigid. Everyone does this. Nobody checks. I'm not doing it. Please don't pursue this." That was the last of it. How she'd gotten my password, I could only guess. She'd come over for dinner once and seen my badge lying on the hall table. She walked past it on her way to the bathroom and paused to glance at it. That was all it would have taken. I'd included all of that in my write-up. Mark flipped through the pages, adjusted his glasses, and studied the documents carefully. "These records are complete. You reported the ID misuse promptly, your own position is clean. But do you know the total amount this person accessed?" 120,000, I said. 7 orders. Each between 8 and 20,000. All under the same vendor. All labeled office supplies. None of them were ever received into inventory. Mark turned to the vendor's registered address. This isn't a commercial address. It's a residential building. She runs her supply business from home, I said. Online orders only. He closed the file and looked at me. Megan, I'll take this case. But I need you to hear me clearly, your ID was used. The system records show your login. Technically, you're the first responsible party. I know. I nodded. That's exactly why I'm coming forward. Getting caught passively is different from reporting it myself. Mark held my gaze for a beat, then picked up the phone on his desk and punched a couple of numbers. Kate. Come down to legal and bring Sarah from internal audit. We've got a case. The meeting ran 3 hours. Sarah, a young woman with round glasses and quick hands, pulled up the procurement system logs and began cross-referencing every access IP from the relevant dates. Megan's normal logins always come from these internal office IPs. But during that week, the access record jumps to a home network address. She highlighted the 2 columns. And the timing is off. Megan clocked into the office at 9 on those days. But these procurement actions happened at 1 in the morning and 6 in the morning. Mark scribbled in his notebook. 7 transactions, total $120,300. All use the company's full legal name on the invoices. But there are no receiving reports, no warehouse sign-offs, no inventory entries. The money went out. The goods never came in. Kate sat at the far end of the table, hands folded, silent throughout. When Sarah had finished, she looked at me. Megan. This is what you wanted to report? Yes. When did you first know about these? Last December. Allison told me about the arrangement. I declined. But the records stayed in the system. Now I suspect she got access to my ID through other means. Kate nodded and looked at Mark. Next steps? Mark flipped his notebook. Internal investigation goes live immediately. Then legal files a police report. Anything over $50,000 falls under criminal jurisdiction. Once the police are involved, we cooperate. Will she go to prison? Sarah asked quietly. Mark didn't answer directly. Depends on the investigation's conclusions. But for this amount. He didn't finish. But everyone in the room understood. After the meeting, Kate held me back. When the door closed, she perched on the edge of the conference table. Megan. You told me that training opportunity was your choice. That wasn't really true, was it? I didn't answer. Do you know who went to that training instead? Emily. She came back and jumped ship to a competitor for double her salary. Kate's voice was level. You're the most capable person in this department. And you've handed away every opportunity you ever got. I won't do that anymore, I said. She looked at me a long moment, then squeezed my shoulder. Get to work. The company will handle this properly. For the next 3 days, I went to work, ate my meals, returned to my apartment. Everything on the surface looked the same. But my phone was quiet. Martha and Allison had gone silent. I guessed they were too busy celebrating the $68,000 bag to remember where the money came from. But I knew the silence wouldn't last. The call came on the 4th day, at 4 in the afternoon. I was reconciling the quarterly reports. My phone buzzed. Martha. I answered. Before I could say a word, her voice came through like a fire hose. Megan. 2 policemen showed up at Allison's door. She was so scared she grabbed the baby and hid in the bathroom for 2 hours crying. They said someone reported her for company fraud. Was this your doing? I leaned back in my chair. Outside, the sunset painted the office towers orange and pink. I kept my voice flat. Mom, the police are at her house because she used my employee ID to fabricate purchase orders and embezzle company funds. As a finance employee, if I knew and didn't report it, I'd be complicit. You're talking nonsense. She just asked you to process a few invoices. It was a favor between family. How could you send your own sister-in-law to the police? $120,000, Mom. That money was reported as a company loss. If the audit had landed on me, I'd be the one facing criminal charges. My license would be revoked. I'd never work in finance again. Then you should have told the company you didn't know. Martha's voice cracked into a scream. You could have kept your mouth shut. Instead you had to tear this family apart. How could you be so vicious? 3 years you lived in my house and this is how you repay me? I let her scream until she had to pause for breath. Then I said, Mom. One more thing. When I transferred that money to Allison, I labeled it a loan in the comments. Please tell her she has 30 days to return it. Otherwise, I'll pursue legal collection. You dare? Martha's voice splintered like broken glass. You ungrateful wretch. Everything this family gave you, we took you in with nothing. You were so good and understanding at first. Now you're shoving your sister-in-law into the system? Who do you think you are? I listened. And something in me tilted sideways. Because all I heard was the woman who'd asked me for money every month, who'd let me cook and clean and chauffeur her everywhere, who'd crushed my training opportunity, all of it reframed in her head as being good to me. Mom, I said. If you were so good to me, tell me, what's my birthday? The line went quiet. I could hear a faint buzz of static. What's my birthday, Mom? I repeated. 7 or 8 seconds of dead air. Then Martha scoffed, irritated. Silly sentimental things like that, who remembers them? Don't give me this nonsense. You need to call the police right now and tell them you made a mistake. Do you hear me? I didn't file the report, I said. The company's legal department did. I have no control over it. I hung up and flipped the phone screen down on my desk. Within 10 seconds, it started vibrating, message after message, voice notes all 60 seconds long. I turned it to silent and didn't touch it again until I was on the subway home. When I opened my phone on the train, the voice messages had piled past 40. I didn't listen to a single one. But there was one text. From Jake. Just a single line. Sis, Mom says you sent police after Allison? Are you out of your mind? I didn't reply. I deleted the chat. That night, after I'd showered and changed, the doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. Daniel was standing outside in his gray hoodie, hood pulled up, face pale. I opened the door but stayed in the frame. Daniel. Megan. His voice was raspy, like he hadn't slept in days. Are you really going through with this? You came here for your mother, or for your sister-in-law? I came to tell you to drop it. He stepped forward. I put my hand up, blocking his entrance. Allison took $120,000 of my company's money. She used my ID to do it. Those invoices had my signature on them. If an audit had found out, if I'd been caught, I'd have lost my license. I'd be blacklisted. This would have been my entire career. And you think I shouldn't have reported her? Daniel dragged his palm across his face, over the stubble on his jaw. He looked exhausted. Dark circles. Downturned mouth. But she's family. You don't air family laundry in public. Can't you think about what this does to everyone? How it looks to the neighbors, to Mom's friends, to Jake's coworkers. Did anyone in this family ever think about me? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. A neighbor walked by with their dog, paused to look us over, then hurried on. I finally let Daniel in, but only for 10 minutes. I poured him a glass of water and set it on the coffee table. He sat on the couch, bent over, picking at the dead skin around his thumbnail. Mom cried all night, he said dully. Allison is terrified. Her mom called ours and screamed for an hour. Mom said to tell you, if you drop it, she'll make sure Allison never touches anything of yours again. Can't drop it. The company filed. I'm not in control anymore. He was quiet a long time. When he looked up, those blue eyes were the same blue eyes from his proposal 3 years ago. But everything behind them had changed. I looked at him now and felt like I was seeing someone I barely knew anymore. Megan, he said. You're not the same person. I haven't changed, I said, leaning against the kitchen counter with my arms crossed. I'm just not letting you take from me anymore. The old Megan is still in here. She just doesn't want to be used. He got up and walked to the door. He stopped with his hand on the frame and didn't turn around. Mom asked me to ask you one thing. Are you coming back? No, I said. The door clicked shut. His footsteps faded down the hallway. The heavy fire door at the stairwell banged. I went to the kitchen window and looked down through the glass. Daniel emerged from the front door and stood under the streetlight, shoulders slumped. He took out his phone and made a call. I couldn't see who he was talking to. After a minute, he put the phone away and walked off down the street, his shadow stretching long behind him. What came after felt like dominoes. One by one, they fell. Faster than I'd expected. Sarah in the audit department had dug up more evidence after the initial report was submitted to the police. Allison's social media accounts showed recent purchases, a new sound system, a new laptop, a plane ticket to the south. The dates matched the invoice periods. Photo captions read, treating myself a little. She was holding a coffee cup, the sound system box visible behind her. Sarah took screenshots of everything. Mark submitted it all. Complete chain of evidence, he told me. From purchase to payment to expenditure. It's closed. She can't talk her way out now. I nodded. My mother-in-law went nuclear. She started calling every relative she knew, opening each conversation with, "Do you know what Megan did?" She painted me as a scheming snake who'd plotted to destroy her own family. She even called my parents. The night she called my mother, I was in the kitchen washing dishes when my phone lit up with Mom's name. Sweetheart. Her voice was rough, like she'd been holding something in. Your mother-in-law called me today. She said a lot of things. Mom. Don't listen to her. None of it's true. I didn't. Mom's voice steadied, but I could hear the anger underneath. I'm just sorry, that's all. She called you ungrateful? She said you were destroying her family? What about what she did to you? Does she remember your birthday? Did she ever take care of you when you were sick? Did anyone pick you up when you worked till midnight? And those Thanksgivings, you think I didn't know you were eating in the kitchen? Her own mouth told me about it over tea once. She said it like a joke. My hand gripped the phone tighter. My nose stung. I'm okay, Mom. I know you are. Her voice softened. You always said you were okay, even when you weren't. But listen to me. When you can't stand it anymore, you come home. Your father and I are here. Your room is still yours. I changed the sheets last week. Okay, I said. My voice came out thick. I hung up and sat on the couch in the quiet apartment. The overhead light was on. My last physical from work sat on the coffee table. All my numbers were fine. But the heart can't be tested on a chart. I slept heavily that night. No dreams. About a week later, my father-in-law reached out. He asked to meet at the coffee shop near our old house, the place Daniel and I used to go when we were newlyweds. The sign out front had changed from blue and white to gold and black, and the chairs inside had been reupholstered. When I walked in, my father-in-law was sitting by the window. His tea had gone cold, untouched. He stood up when he saw me and gestured to the seat across from him. The politeness of it surprised me. I'd never seen that much courtesy from him before. I sat down. The waitress came. I ordered a latte. My father-in-law folded his hands on the table. His fingers trembled slightly, whether from cold or nerves, I wasn't sure. He was over 60 now. His hair was mostly gray. His face was more lined than I remembered, but he was still wearing his favorite gray suit. The tie was straight. Megan. He spoke more softly than I'd ever heard him. Dad, your father-in-law, came to talk to you. The house is in chaos. You know it. Your mother-in-law cries every day. Allison's gone to her parents' house with the kid. Jake hasn't shown up for work in a week. I'm not blaming you for what you did to Allison, she was wrong, and I know that. But I'm asking you, is there a middle ground? What kind of middle ground? If Allison pays the money back. If she admits her mistake and pays the fine. Could you talk to the company and ask them to drop the criminal charges? He tapped the table lightly. You have to think of her child. If she goes to prison, who takes care of that baby? Jake can't both work and raise a toddler. The kid's barely a year old. Dad. I set down my mug. If the audit had found out about Allison's actions last year and I'd been fired, if I'd been prosecuted, would any of you have spoken up for me? His mouth opened, but no sound came out. You wouldn't have. You'd have said, well, Megan should have been more careful. You'd have figured I'd land on my feet. You'd have assumed I was used to taking hits. So now she's the one who's exposed, and you're asking me to be soft. She's your sister-in-law. Did she think about that when she took my ID and stole $120,000? I let the words drop. She thought, the sister-in-law won't say anything. She's too easygoing. She takes everything. She carried herself on that assumption all the way to the end. And now you want me to absorb the consequences for her. A slow piano piece played overhead. A wedding standard. Sunlight came through the window and hit the table. My father-in-law looked down, his gray hair glowing in the light. He was quiet for a long time. Almost 2 minutes. Then he exhaled, and all the tension seemed to go out of him. Megan. You're right. His voice was so soft I barely heard it. I didn't raise them right. Your mother-in-law, you know her. She ran everything. Daniel and Jake did whatever she told them. I never stepped in. I saw how they treated you, and I never said a word. He looked up, his eyes red. I'm sorry. I felt a lot of things in that moment. But all of them were thin. Like paper brushing past, then gone. Thank you for saying that, Dad, I said. He stood up and left his cold tea on the table. On his way to the door, he paused, looked down at me from beside my chair. If you ever want to come back for dinner, the door is open. Your mother-in-law, she has a stubborn mouth. But she's been sitting and staring at walls for days. She's not yelling anymore. Thank you, I said. But I won't be coming back. He nodded, a slow, heavy thing. Then he was gone, the bell on the glass door chiming after him. I finished my latte alone. Outside, a woman with a stroller walked slowly past. The baby stretched a hand into the air, grasping at nothing. Sunlight caught the new leaves on the trees, bright and green. I paid and left. Walking past the old building, I didn't look up. The wind pushed my hair back, and I walked faster toward the subway. 2 weeks later, Allison's case closed. The court convicted her of commercial fraud, with $120,000 in damages. 6 months in prison, suspended sentence, probation for 2 years. A $50,000 fine. All stolen assets were to be forfeited. Kate posted in the company group chat, all parties involved have now been held accountable. Nobody asked who the party was. But everyone knew, because at the all-staff meeting that afternoon, the CFO made it clear, this company has zero tolerance for any financial misconduct, regardless of whether the perpetrator is internal or external. In this case, an outside party gained illegal access to an employee account. The employee came forward voluntarily with full evidence. The company has taken appropriate action. I sat in the 5th row, off to the side. My colleague next to me glanced over and patted my arm. No words. Just the gesture. It was a strange feeling. I'd done nothing wrong. I'd been publicly cleared. But the cost was having sent a member of my own family through the legal system. I knew I was right. And yet the hollowness and the fullness both sat inside me at once. After the meeting, Kate called me into her office. She sat me down, handed me a cup of hot tea, and pulled a single sheet out of a folder. She pushed it across the desk toward me. It was a promotion letter, stamped with the company seal. Dated 3 days prior. The CFO asked me to tell you, Kate said, leaning against her desk with a slight smile. The finance supervisor position has been open for 3 months. He thinks you're the right fit. I think so too. I looked at the letter. My full name. My new title. The effective date. It was only a few lines, but I couldn't look away. Will you take it? Kate asked. I folded the letter neatly and put it in my bag. Yes. The day I moved out was a Saturday. The morning was warm and clear. I'd packed my things over the course of a week, but when I actually assembled everything, it didn't amount to much. 3 years, 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. On the coffee table lay the signed divorce papers. Daniel had signed them 5 days earlier. He'd called to tell me they were ready. When I went to pick them up, he didn't come downstairs. His mother opened the door. She handed me the folder with shaking hands, her lips pressed tight, silent. I opened it, checked the signatures, and said, "Thanks, Mom." Her throat moved. She got one word out, "Megan." "Bye," I said. Before I left, I took a last look around the apartment. The couch. The TV. The dining table. The rug. The painting on the wall. Every plate in the kitchen. The towel rack in the bathroom. None of it belonged to me. Martha had chosen all of it. I'd just been living in it. I was pulling my suitcase toward the front door when Martha came down the stairs. She stopped on the landing, still in that green cashmere cardigan, a handkerchief twisted in her hand. "Megan." Her voice scraped like sandpaper. "Are you really walking away this hard? We're family. We can talk. If you leave, this family falls apart." I set down the suitcase and turned to face her. She stood 2 steps above me, looking down. But something about her seemed smaller now. Shrunken inside that cardigan. "Mom," I said, "do you know what I wanted most in these 3 years? It wasn't a year-end bonus. It wasn't a bigger house. It was for you to see me as a person. Someone with her own needs. Her own wishes. Her own dignity. If you'd ever once asked me, 'Are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you want this?' I could have stayed forever." Her lips trembled. No words came. "You never asked." I pulled my suitcase through the door. So now I don't need it anymore. The elevator doors closed. Through the crack before they sealed, I heard a muffled sound from the stairwell. Like someone crying behind a wall. I watched the floor numbers tick down, one by one, my knuckles white on the suitcase handle. In my pocket was the key to my new place. Tomorrow I'd pick up my new badge. In my bank account sat the $86,000. Allison's parents had scrambled to pay it back the day after the verdict, along with a single word, "Sorry." I'd kept the money. I hadn't answered the apology. In the cab, I opened my phone and left the family group chat. Then I called my mother. "Mom. I got divorced." A few seconds of silence. Then, "Come home for Christmas, sweetheart." "Okay." The streetlights rolled past, one after another. The whole city spread out in warm yellow. I turned off the screen and leaned back. My breathing felt easier than it had in years. The days that followed flew by. Everything moved so fast I barely had time to feel it. My new apartment was a 1-bedroom facing south, with a 24-hour coffee shop downstairs. That first weekend, I slept in. No knocks on the door. No "Megan, wake up." No sound of the range hood running in the kitchen. I woke to light falling through the slats in the curtains, cutting a gold stripe across the white sheets. I sat on the window seat in my pajamas and drank a cup of coffee. Across the street, a garbage truck rattled as a worker hoisted bins. On the balcony of the building opposite, an old man was watering his succulents in slow, methodical motions. I felt the sting behind my nose. But my mouth was curving upward. Turns out being alone felt pretty good. When I reported for work as supervisor, Kate introduced me to the team. A couple of younger staff members called me Supervisor Miller in shy voices. I told them to call me Megan. They exchanged looks, then someone smiled. The mood relaxed. Work went more smoothly than I'd expected. I'd been handling the core reports for years as a specialist. As supervisor, I just had more oversight and more signatures. It was actually less stressful, no more covering for other people's mistakes. No more being the one who had to work late. When it was time to leave, I left. Nobody was waiting for dinner. Daniel came to see me once, at the office. I'd just come out of a meeting when the front desk called to say a Mr. Wilson was here to see me. It took a second for my brain to catch up. He was sitting on a chair in the lobby, wearing a dark blue jacket I'd never seen before, probably new. He'd lost weight. His face was narrower. The bags under his eyes were deep. But his stubble was trimmed and his hair was clean. He stood when I came in, an envelope clutched in his hand. "Megan," he said. "Can we talk?" I checked my watch. Half an hour. We walked to the coffee shop downstairs. He ordered black coffee. I got my usual latte. Across the table, I wrapped my hands around the cup for warmth. Rain was falling outside, tracing patterns on the glass. "How are you?" he asked. "Good. Got promoted. Settled into the new place. You?" He gave a bitter smile, all mouth, no eyes. "Mom cries every day. Allison's at her parents'. Jake hasn't spoken to me since I signed the papers. He says I didn't stand up for his wife. Dad just sits and sighs." I sipped my coffee. "I see. Megan." His hand reached across the table. I pulled back. He stopped midair, let it hover for a beat, then lowered it. "I've been thinking. You were right. I never supported you. I just let Mom make every decision. I assumed you'd always be the one to absorb everything. After you left, I realized I didn't even know how to pay the utilities. I'd used the washing machine for 3 years and never changed a setting. And now?" I asked. "Now I know." He gave a hollow laugh. "You learn a lot when you're on your own." I looked down at my latte. The foam was starting to dissipate. "Daniel," I said, "did you come here to ask me to come back?" His mouth opened. Nothing came out. "You can't even answer that." I stood up. "The divorce is final. We can be friends, casual friends, but don't mention the past, and don't let your mother call me." I was halfway to the door when he called after me. "Megan. You've really changed." I didn't turn around. Martha's calls kept coming in the months that followed, though less frequently. At first, she called every day. I blocked her. She used another number. I blocked that too. Then she started borrowing phones of relatives, neighbors, and every time I picked up, the same sobbing script. You're so cruel, Megan. You destroyed this family. You don't know what you've done. I let her finish each time. Then I said, Mom, are you done? I'm about to go into a meeting. She stopped yelling and switched to pleading. Her voice gone syrupy, desperate. Megan, I know I was wrong. Please come back. Daniel misses you. He says your name in his sleep. Mom, I said, leaning back in my chair, do you miss me? Or do you miss the daughter-in-law who gave you money, cooked your meals, and never said no? The line went still. Think about it before you answer. She never called again. The real turning point came 3 months later, at dusk. I'd worked late, close to 7, and was walking out of the office building when I noticed a figure crouched by the flower bed next to the steps. Allison. She looked gaunt. Her cheeks were hollow, her cheekbones sharp. She had her hair tied back, no makeup, wearing a wrinkled gray sweatshirt. When she saw me, she pushed herself upright, swayed for a moment, and steadied herself against her knees. Sis, Megan. She corrected herself. Can I talk to you? I looked at her and saw the woman who'd begged me for a handbag half a year ago with the baby in her arms. The same woman who'd been soft and coquettish and certain that the world would give her what she wanted. None of that was left. Just this pale, exhausted shell. There's a bench over there. Let's sit. On the bench, she picked at her fingers. Her nails were clipped short and bare, no polish, no lotion. The knuckles were cracked and dry. My parents helped me pay it back, she said slowly, like she was reading a speech she'd memorized. The fine too. I lost my job. I'm home with the baby now. Can't find anything new. Jake's pay doesn't go far, especially after we sent you that first payment. We're really tight. Okay. I came to apologize. She looked up, eyes reddening. I used to think you were stupid. Easy to push around. The whole family thought that. You'd say yes to everything. We made jokes about it behind your back. About our little sister-in-law who'd take anything. She sniffed, wiped her nose with the back of her hand. When you reported me, I hated you. I cursed you for weeks. Then one night I couldn't sleep, and I started asking, why didn't you report me earlier? You had all that evidence. Why wait? I didn't answer. You waited because you'd reached the end, she said. You'd swallowed every single thing we gave you, and we just kept shoveling more in your face. Anyone would have broken. The evening wind picked up, rustling the leaves. I pulled my jacket tighter. Allison, I said. I accept your apology. But I'm not going to say it's okay, because it's not. What you did nearly ruined my career. If the company had discovered I knew and hadn't spoken up, I'd be the one going to jail. She nodded, her teeth digging into her lower lip, tears sliding down. Don't do it again, I said, getting up. For your kids' sake. And for yours. Megan. She scrambled up. Can you forgive me? I looked back at her. The streetlight from behind painted her long shadow across the pavement. I don't hate you, I said. But forgiveness is something else. Take care of yourself. Don't come back. That night I sat on my couch in the quiet of my apartment. No TV. No music. I pulled out my phone and scrolled past a screenshot I'd forgotten. Allison walking away after our conversation, bending down to tie her shoelace. Something about the motion reminded me of myself, back in the early days, crouching on the kitchen floor to wipe up a spill while everyone else sat at the table. People change. Some just take too long. Not long after, Jake asked to meet. He chose the same coffee shop, the same table Daniel had sat at. But Jake was a different person now. Gray sweater. Short hair. A clean-shaven face. He sat with his hands on the table, not buried in a phone, not lounging back in his chair. "Hey, sis," he said. The old name stuck. I didn't correct him. "You look good." "Thin, but good." "Thanks." "You look different too." He played with his mocha, stirring the foam. "Everything's different now. Mom sits around staring at walls. Dad's learning to cook. Daniel's working a regular job. I'm the one holding it together, and some days I feel like I'm holding nothing." "What did you want to talk about?" He raised his head. His eyes held something I'd never seen from him before. Shame. Awkward sincerity. I wanted to say sorry. I used you like a bank, like a housekeeper, and I never thought twice about it. Whatever Mom said, whatever Daniel said, I just followed. It felt natural. "You were my sister-in-law, right? You were supposed to make sacrifices for your little brother. Now I look back and ask, why? What did you ever owe me?" He pulled an envelope out of his bag and pushed it across the table. Inside was a check for $50,000. "We scraped this together," he said. "Would have been more, but things are tight. I still owe you $36. I'll pay the rest in installments. This is the first one." I stared at the check. Rain was coming down outside, beating on the glass. "Jake," I said. "Your situation. It has to be paid back." He cut me off. Allison said the same thing. It was never our money. We took it like we were entitled to it. Now it just feels wrong. Please take it. I need to know we've paid back something. I folded the check into my pocket. When Jake stood to leave, he offered his hand. I took it. His palm was rough, calloused from sales work. "I'll keep Mom off your back," he said. "Thanks." At the door, he stopped. "One more thing. Mom chipped in for Allison's community college accounting class. She said she didn't want to see anyone in this family go down the wrong path again." I blinked, then nodded. "That's good." After Jake left, I sat alone in the coffee shop for a long time, the check sitting in my pocket like a paperweight. My phone lit up, Kate asking about the morning meeting prep. I replied done and set it aside. Outside, the rain pounded harder. I heard updates in fragments after that. Daniel got a steady job at a logistics company. Word was he'd been promoted to a small supervisory role. Martha's social circle shrank, several of her old card partners stopped coming around. Rumors had started circulating about the Wilsons driving out their daughter-in-law and getting someone else arrested. The details weren't accurate, but the shape was close enough. Martha felt the shame and stayed home more. My father-in-law called my mother once, just to say he was sorry. My mom passed it on one afternoon while I was watering plants on my balcony. He called and said he was sorry, she told me. Said you were a good girl and his son wasn't good enough. He said that? Pretty much. Your father got mad when I told him. Said too little too late. But I think, she paused. I think they're waking up, sweetheart. They can wake up, I said. Doesn't mean I need to go back. That's my girl, Mom said. I stood on the balcony, looking down at the street below. A line of people waited outside the coffee shop, cups in hand. Someone walked a dog. Another pushed a stroller. Everything normal. Quiet. The smell of cooking oil from the old kitchen, Martha's shape on the sofa, Daniel's keyboard clicking. Those memories were still sharp, but they'd receded. Like looking at old photographs from a house I used to live in. The moment I truly turned the page came that spring. I went for the company health checkup. While waiting for my results, I sat next to a woman in her late 40s, trim and sporty. She asked for directions to the lab. I pointed her the right way, and we started chatting. Her name was Linda. She taught art at a local middle school. She glanced at my employee badge. Megan Miller? Did you used to live over on Grant Street? Lived there a few years, I said. You know me? I don't know you. But I know your mother-in-law, Martha Wilson. We were in the same women's club once, a while back. She gave a small smile. She stopped coming after you left. I didn't react much. Just said, that was a while ago. She used to talk about you all the time at the club, Linda said, lowering her voice. How obedient you were. How you did everything she asked. I remember thinking, she's not talking about a daughter-in-law. She's talking about someone who's been worn down. She patted my hand. You look good now. Leaving was the right move. I'm not saying she's a bad person, not exactly. But some people need everyone to bend to them. If you never refused, they'd never think twice. I laughed. You've got her figured out. Teaching high school art, you learn a lot about parents. She stood and winked. Keep going. Don't look back. I thought about those words for a long time after. In May, a letter arrived from Allison. 3 pages, handwritten. Her hand was awkward, but every character had been formed with care. The accounting classes were almost done. The instructor had encouraged her to move forward. She'd started helping small businesses with bookkeeping, $600 or $700 a month, not a lot, but clean. She'd also offered to talk to our company's legal team if they ever needed her to testify. She said she wanted to stop hiding. The courts had taken their due, the fines were paid, but she felt like the guilt still sat inside her. I read it on the couch, then took a photo and sent it to Kate. Kate replied, "Is she having a crisis of conscience?" I typed back, "Maybe. People change." I slid the letter into my desk drawer, alongside my graduation certificate and my old company exit paperwork. Each item in that drawer marked the end of one thing and the start of another. In June, Ben suggested we go to the beach. We'd been slow-burn friends for almost a year. The kind of friendship that didn't ask for much. Weekends were sometimes meals, sometimes walks. Work weeks were quiet. I liked the rhythm. More importantly, I needed it. The beach was half empty. Barefoot on the sand, with waves rolling in and pulling back. Ben walked beside me, a half step away. Not crowding. Not distant. About halfway down the stretch, he said, "Megan, I'm transferring to the West Coast office next month. I wanted to ask if you'd come with me." I stopped. The water washed over my ankles. The West Coast office needs a finance supervisor. I recommended you to the director. He said if you want it, you're in. No formal interview. Ben turned to look at me. His ears were pink, but his eyes didn't waver. New city. Clean slate. Knew everything. Think about it? I looked at the sand, at the water pushing and pulling, then up at the horizon line. Blue and clean. Sure. But with one condition, I get my own place. I'm not ready to share a roof with anyone until I've got my feet under me. Ben's grin spread wide. Of course. Whatever you want. I just thought you'd like the sun out there. And a balcony. You could grow more plants. The comment hit me behind the ribs. Nobody had ever thought about what I might need: sun, a balcony, space for green things. The move to the West Coast happened fast. 3 weeks from decision to execution. Ben helped me pack. I didn't have much. 2 suitcases and a duffel bag fit comfortably in his trunk. As we merged onto the highway, I looked back at the city skyline. The tall buildings. The bridges. The distant roof of that old building I'd lived in for 3 years. They all slipped backward, then dissolved into the horizon. Ben kept the music off. The car hummed. "Nervous?" he asked. "A little," I said. "But mostly just lighter." The new city surprised me. My apartment was a 1-bedroom with a small terrace, and from the terrace I could see the ocean. On my first full day, I went to a nursery and picked out a few pots of pothos and succulents, arranged them on the railing. Their leaves shivered in the breeze. At the office, new colleagues came by to introduce themselves. A woman named Leah handed me a box of homemade cookies as a welcome present. I sat at my new desk, which was clean and empty. Outside, the streets were unfamiliar. The trees were species I couldn't name. But the sunlight was beautiful. I took a photo of the terrace and sent it to my mom. "Settled in," I typed. "It's really nice here. Next time you and Dad visit, I'll take you to a seafood place on the water." She replied with a string of smiley faces. I leaned back in my chair and spun around once. My new badge read, Megan Miller, Finance Supervisor. Simple. Clean. Ben appeared in my doorway at 5, holding his car keys. "There's a seafood place by the water, outdoor seating. Want to go?" I closed my laptop and stood. Let's go. I went back to my old city once. Jake had called to say his mother was in the hospital, mild stroke from high blood pressure. Nothing too serious, but she needed to stay a few days. I took 3 days to decide. Then I bought the ticket. Martha was in bed when I walked into the hospital room, and she looked much older than I'd remembered. Deeper wrinkles. White hair spreading. An4 taped to the back of her hand. When she saw me, she froze. Her mouth worked, and finally 3 syllables came out, "Megan?" "Mom. I came to see you." Her eyes went red. She reached for my hand, hesitated, pulled back. I reached out and gently covered hers. "How are you feeling?" "Fine." They say I'm fine. Her voice was raspy. Why did you come all this way? Jake told me. I wanted to see you. Try not to worry about things. Just rest. She nodded fiercely, tears cutting tracks down her cheeks. She wiped them away with the back of her hand. The room was quiet. Jake was cutting apples into wedges. Allison sat by the window, holding the baby. Megan, Martha said, her voice cracking. I was wrong. All of it. You should hate me. I looked into her eyes, those eyes that had looked down at me with so much authority for so many years. Now they were just wet. And full of something that might have been regret. Or maybe just wanting. I don't hate you, I said. I haven't hated you for a long time. But you know I can't come back. She nodded, fiercely. I know. I know. Just you coming to see me, it's enough. After 40 minutes, I stood to leave. Martha caught the edge of my shirt, just a light tug. She looked up at me. Megan, she said. Are you happy now? Yeah. I smiled. Work's good. My place is good. There's someone who takes care of me. The moment I said someone who takes care of me, her hand let go. Her mouth bent into something that could have been a smile. Good, she said. Good. Jake walked me to the corridor. Thanks for coming. She's been so anxious, and now she's much better. It was the right thing to do. She's getting older. Do you still blame her? I considered the question. I don't blame her. But I won't forget. That's not the same. He nodded. He understood. On the flight back, I watched the ocean scroll beneath the clouds, blue and endless. My phone lit up with Ben's message, done? Coming back tomorrow? Yeah. Tomorrow. Good. I'll pick you up. I turned off my phone and closed my eyes. Behind my lids, the images played back, Martha tugging my sleeve, Jake saying thank you, Allison writing in her letter about clean money. A carousel of moments. Then it stopped. The plane flew onward. The clouds outside were brilliant gold. I opened my eyes and looked at the light, and I didn't think about anything. I just let myself feel it. There was a long road ahead. But from here on out, every step was my own.